Look after your brain and look after your friends' brains.
Welcome to Agency for Change, a podcast from KidGlov that brings you the stories of change makers who are actively working to improve our communities. In every episode, we'll meet with people who are making a lasting impact in the places we call home.
So who out there loves to snow ski or snowboard? If you do, you've probably been faced with the question of whether or not to wear a helmet. You know you should. It's an important part of protecting your head during accidents and collisions that could occur while zipping down the mountain. Yet, helmets just don't look cool, and they're rarely comfortable to have on your head for a day-long outing. This, though, is where a new company comes into the picture. Anti-Ordinary is a startup that is introducing the next generation in brain protection because they decided your brain needs more comfort, more style, and most importantly, more safety. Hey, everyone. This is Lynn Weinman, President and Chief Strategist at KidGlov. Welcome to another episode of the Agency for Change podcast. Today's guest is Rob Joseph, founder of Anti-Ordinary, who has developed a new and exciting product to protect the brains of skiers and snowboarders. Rob, welcome to the podcast.
G'day, Lynn. Thanks so much for having me.
I'm so excited to talk to you. And let's just start by having you tell us about this exciting new product you've developed.
Yeah, sure. So I'm from a company called Anti-Ordinary, and we make skiing and snowboarding helmets that are more like beanies. So they fit better, they feel better, they look much better, in my opinion, at least, and they're really safe as well.
So just to clarify, though, is it a beanie that acts like a helmet or a helmet that looks like a beanie?
It's somewhere in between the two. It's like both, but not the exact same as either. So we're sort of creating a new category of brain protection. It shouldn't really sit within either. It's certified as a helmet, so it's got the safest drop test results of any helmet we've ever seen. But the fit and feel is more akin to a beanie, and becoming more and more like that every single day.
You know, as someone who has kids who have had trouble with concussions, I really, really appreciate the work that you're doing because protecting your brain is a pretty important thing, particularly in a sport like snowboarding or skiing.
Absolutely. I'm a lot the same. I grew up, riding motorbikes and mountain bikes, and I've had plenty of brain injuries. And it's something as action sports people we don't talk about anywhere near enough. And that's why helmets haven't gotten a whole lot better in a long time. The market's moved really slowly in terms of technology, and it's not great. And that's why we wanted to change it, because you get 2 arms, 2 legs, but only 1 brain. And once the damage is done there, it's pretty tough. So we're trying to make it all a bit more accessible, a bit safer, and happier for everyone on the mountain.
I love that mantra. You get 2 arms, you get 2 legs, but only 1 brain. That's a good one. So I am really curious as a marketer. I have to ask about the name of your company. Tell me about how you came about with this name, The Anti-Ordinary.
Yeah, it was one of those serendipitous ones. We didn't really spend a lot of time thinking about it, I suppose. It was just one of those ones that just popped up and it was right. It was early on too. It's anti-ordinary, and it comes from the idea that ordinary is just the everyday. It's okay. And extraordinary is the everyday stuff done really well. But we didn't really want to be everyday at all. We wanted to be the opposite of that. So we became anti-ordinary. And it's not the same as everyone else. It's different. And sometimes it's not for everybody. The leaps that we're making in technology and the product and the way that we conduct ourselves is different and different good. But sometimes it takes people a little while to adjust. And you sort of point back to the name and go, it's okay. Not everyone's anti-ordinary. Everyone is ordinary, but not everyone's anti-ordinary. And that's okay.
It feels like pure genius to me, Rob. So congratulations on that name. So tell me a bit. I love hearing people's founder stories. So you started as an action adventure person, but what led you down this path? How did you come up with the idea?
Yeah, it's a bit of a convergence of a few different things. I grew up in sort of southeast Queensland in Australia, sort of where Steve Irwin's from, where it's nice and warm. Grew up riding motorbikes, mountain bikes, wakeboarding, all that kind of thing. And I ended up studying medical engineering at university, or my dad's an engineer and a very good one. And I was lucky enough to sort of learn from him. And so I decided to get into medical engineering as I got into university. And so I'd never really snowboarded before till I turned 16. It was my first ever time. And then again, when I was at university at 17, and I was riding one day and I was used to wearing helmets. I was a medical engineer. I'm a reasonably intelligent guy, particularly around, the body and safety and that kind of thing, and being an action sports person. And I've always worn a helmet, never had a problem with it, riding bikes and wakeboards and that kind of thing. And then I got to the snow and I wore the same helmet that I was given to ride in competitions with, wakeboarding. Took the same helmet with me. And the thing just annoyed me. I just hated wearing it. It was uncomfortable. It bounced around because your head sort of moves. It changes a lot, different temperatures and the way that you use it. And so for me, in the gloves and the goggles, I've just never been more annoyed by it. And it got to the point where I guess the bravado of being a 17-year-old man or boy, and thinking I was a bit better than I was, and I was in New Zealand and took the helmet off, thought I was pretty cool, was really comfortable then, and then had a pretty hard crash. And not long after that, I realized how dumb it was to not wear a helmet, but also realized how much I didn't want to wear one, and sort of had a bit of a look around and realized that everyone who wasn't wearing a helmet wore a beanie. And even a lot of people who were wearing helmets wore beanies anyway. And we sort of then had a bit of a look at the way that helmet technology had been going. And quite sadly, for a long time, it hadn't really changed much. And so we thought, well, instead of trying to make a helmet more comfortable, why don't make a beanie more safe and come at it from that angle? And to do that, I was 20 at the time when we first started. And it's something that took a long time we thought it was going to be much easier. I remember it was January, we sort of kicked it all off. And I said, we'll have samples by May. And we had samples by May 4 years later. So it was, we had to invent a lot of stuff to make it happen. It doesn't work anywhere near what a traditional helmet does underneath. It's groundbreaking in a lot of ways, and I'm really proud of it. But it did take a long time to sort of get there. And now we're here and we're happy with the way it fits and feels and looks, and the safety itself speaks for itself. It's better than any other drop test results we've ever seen from any other helmet.
That's amazing. Rob, I started skiing. I'm quite a bit older than you. I started skiing before we wore helmets. We didn't wear helmets skiing. And then when I introduced my kids to skiing, they had to wear a helmet. And then one day my husband said, hey, you're making the kids wear helmets. Why aren't you wearing one? It's like, well, because it's ugly and it'll mess up my hair. But I finally succumbed to wearing a helmet too, but I hated every minute of it. So I'm excited to try out the anti-ordinary process. So a bit ago, you gave us just a glimpse into the process. You started when you were 20. It took a little bit longer than you thought, but can you give us a bit more? Like, what has it taken to get the product to this point?
Yeah, it's been quite an incredible journey. One, manufacturing just generally, but two, manufacturing something that's so new and so different. We started off, I remember my younger sister, the original concept was a non-Newtonian material, which starts off soft and turns hard when you impact it. And we wanted to build a whole helmet out of that. And so I remember there's a way that you can, home make some non-Newtonian material, and it's cornstarch and water. And I remember making some of that up and sort of running around and getting my sister to hit me. And it sort of worked, and it was good enough. And my sister and everyone seems to love that part of the process where they go to smacking over the head. And we sort of started to realize it would work. And we went through this big design process of just using just non-Newtonian materials. And then we realized it was going to be too heavy. The safety element was going to be a little bit interesting and very different in a lot of regards. And just building a unit that could be impenetrable as well by sharp objects was really tough with just non-Newtonian materials. On top of that, a really interesting part of the process is finding a manufacturer. Yeah. We tried really hard to build in Australia. We just couldn't get anyone to sort of take the job. And we sort of had money in our pocket ready to go at the time. But then, so we went to the manufacturers in China, and most helmets come out of the same 4 factories or 3 factories in China over there. All the big brands that you know and love come from the same factories, pretty much our ones come out of. And so we went to them and said, hey, can you build this? And they go, no, absolutely not. And,
wow.
And we go, oh, no, that's a bit of an issue. And so, and this was, we did a Kickstarter well after this. So we decided all that. And then, so we went and spoke to the factories and said, okay, so what can you build? And so we just we had to make a decision as to whether we went with a manufacturer who could build the things we were looking to build with, or we went with a helmet manufacturer who couldn't. Yeah. And we decided to go with the helmet manufacturer because they had all the expertise, all the drop testing rigs, all the engineers who've been building every helmet in the world for the last 30 years. And so we thought, well, it's better to stay with the expertise. And so what we had to do was then adapt the design into something they could build. it became complex. And from an engineering perspective, it was quite the feat to get it to where it ended up being. But we got there. And now from the non-Newtonian, prototypes we had to the unit we have now, which is a little bit more plasticky, slightly more rigid, but in terms of the fit and feel on the head, it's better. And in terms of safety, it's much better as well, and looks are very much the same. So that's part of the process. And it took, the best part of 3 or 4 years to get that right, because it's hard to build something. It's easy to build something that moves and is flexible, and it's easy to build something that's safe. But combining the two is really tough in such a way that it's safe enough to go on people's heads. And the thing we always started off with was that it could never be unsafe. The safety had to be paramount, but we had to find a way to make that work with the flexibility and the way we wanted to look and that kind of thing. And it was really complex. And then, of course, COVID hit.
Changed everything for all of us, yeah?
Everything, And we were in China, actually. We were in the airport the same day as the first Australian COVID case.
Whoa.
And we somehow missed it. And that was back, it was in March, and we had no idea what was going on. We both came home and just continued living our lives, and it could have been really scary, but it was really scary. But the thing is because we were manufacturing in China and doing all this prototyping, normally we'd just go there and look at it, and they'd make a design change. We'd go through, we'd test it, we'd check it out, it would break, we'd fix it, and that would be fine. But because we couldn't get to China and we're all locked down, they'd build it, test it, and then send us photos and videos, and they'd send us the unit over. We'd inspect it, have to look at it, then send it back. And so it turned what was a 2 or 3 day process into 4 or 5 weeks. And we had to make countless changes throughout that process. And it was just, it was brutal, honestly. And from that time, from a business perspective as well, investment was impossible to get, particularly for a snow sports company from the hot part of Australia. And it was a real bunker down type situation, but we made it through. We kept persisting. And and then it got to the stage where the final prototypes came out, and they were great. And now we've sort of done our first couple of runs. The first Australian run sold out very fast, and the American run's done the same. And we're delivering Kickstarter units as well at the same time, which is good too. And it's just in a point now where we're really happy. But it's been 6 years, and it's felt like 6 years as well.
Wow. Rob, I hope you're documenting this, because I've recently read the book Shoe Dog, which is I don't know if you've read it. It's the Phil Knight and Nike story, but there seem to be some parallels, right? The rubber and the waffle iron and your sister like hitting you over the head. I think there's some parallels. So someday I want to read your book. I hope you'll ping me when it's available. So Rob, what was the most surprising part of that journey that you went through? Was it the time? Was it COVID? Was it the manufacturing? I'm sure there are so many things.
So many things. There's been so many things that have been just wild. I never thought building something, manufacturing something would be so difficult and change so much, and little fiddly things. But I guess one of the biggest surprising things is just our ability to do it. I guess. I mean, for me, I'm a boy from Brisbane. I got kicked out of university while I started this company because I didn't do enough classes in time. So I'm most of an engineer officially. Now I'm here in America. I'm meeting just the most incredible people. I'm worlds away from where I was, and we've built the best ski helmet in the world. And I suppose that's the most surprising thing for us, is just the ability that we were, with a lot of persistence and a lot of hard work, we were able to do it. And something that people said was impossible. And still often I've got an email this morning saying, hey, you guys are scammers. This can't be true. And, you go, I'll send you one.
Yeah.
Because it's real. And so I guess that's the surprising thing. And we meet a lot of people on the journey, a lot of startups and founders, and they mimic a similar thing. It's similar to the Shoe Dog thing, not to compare myself to Phil Knight, of course. Would be good one day. But just the impossibility of everything that people perceive is not necessarily correct. And if you want to persevere, and everything's possible, I suppose.
I do think perseverance at all costs is the story of the entrepreneur, I believe. And I hear that in your story as well. So you started in Australia, you do some work in the States, you're manufacturing in China. Like, how has that distance and that travel impacted the process also?
In a lot of ways. Brisbane, Australia, or Queensland, Australia is a great place to start a business. The people are friendly. We know it well. The networks are quite easy to tap into. And it's a great community there. And similar to, your Salt Lake Cities and your Deborah, it's quite similar. Access to capital is tough in Australia, particularly for a company like ours. Early stage, your hardware companies, first-time founders, in an industry that people are aware of but don't realize it's $17 billion wide, and then $42 billion wide for cycle helmets. So that convincing is really hard. And American people just get it. you put the helmet on people's heads and they go, oh, I get it. Whereas in Australia, they sort of go, oh, this is an interesting product, but I don't really. And there's a lot of benefits to being in both places, and China as well. Time zones are tough. Having calls at 3 o'clock in the morning back home in Australia, and then staying up till midnight to catch up with Australia when you're over here, and then China being 2 hours different to the Australian time zone too. And also one of the biggest, I guess, steps in all of it for me was the volume of money and people out here. Like, Australia is as big in terms of surface area as America is, from Mexico to Canada. They're pretty comparable in terms of size. But Australia has the equivalent of something like 3.5 New York cities.
Yeah.
And so just the volume of people and money and accessibility and sport and, that kind of thing. There's probably more people in a Vail resort than there are that ski in Australia on any given day. And that's one of the biggest adaptations is, sometimes in Australia you tend to sort of be a bit more modest. And we like modest people in Australia. We like our athletes modest, that kind of thing. You come to America and you go, no, this could be $1 billion company. And they go, yeah, it could. And you go, great. We all believe this. I don't
People
have to
nod their heads and say yes.
To, whatever.
The big dream.
Show me the numbers, and you show them the numbers. Go, yeah, great. That works. Yeah,
that's awesome.
Exactly. And so dream a bit bigger, and that scale and the size of money here is a big adaptation, but it's a fun one.
Absolutely. Absolutely. So I saw on your website, and I think on the box also for the helmet, that sustainability has been a consideration in your journey. Can you talk a bit more about that?
Yeah, absolutely. I think it's really important. And for companies in this day and age, I'm sure with all your experience, and for companies, it's really hard to backtrack into sustainability and equality and those kind of things. And for a big company, if you're going to give up 10% of your revenue for equality or environmental purposes, what 10% of your staff are you cutting, or what 10% of your costs are you cutting? And it's really hard. But as a startup in this day and age, we're really lucky that we get to build a business and revenue and income streams around doing the right thing. And we can present that to investors and go, hey, this is great. And so for us, doing the right thing has always been paramount. Anti-ordinary is, we want to be a good company that people are proud to work for and to ride in and wear the shirt. And so for us, when we're looking at helmets, unfortunately, they're built with materials that that don't break down. A lot of long chain polymers. It's tough, but they're all totally recyclable. And so we knew that we couldn't build the thing we wanted to build if we wanted to build recycled products. So if we wanted to build in products that break down naturally, it's just currently not possible from a technology perspective.
Right.
But we can recycle them and go, great. So we won't focus on the material so much. We'll focus on what we do with them directly afterwards. And so our goal is to recycle as many helmets as we sell. And that we can tie that into a great campaign, because luckily our market is very, socially eco-conscious. And so what we can do is, and we're a direct-to-consumer company, our helmets fit everyone. So they show up and they just fit. And so we can sell online, which allows us to keep a bit of margin in that we can go, hey, we can give you a bit of money if you send us a helmet. We'll recycle it for you. And then, you'll get a bit of helmet off, a bit of units, a bit of cost off one of ours. And so that attracts new customers. It brings the old customers back. It's a business model that can't really be replicated by other big incumbent companies, because, that's a revenue, part of the revenue they just couldn't make back up. But for us, we can do that. And we've built that into our model of, hey, this is a good thing, but also can help us attract new customers, can keep old ones, as well as doing the right thing for all of us. And it allows our company to do, to offset the thing that we do to a point where we can make a material that's a little bit more environmentally friendly. But until then, we can use the labor. And one day the dream is to have it come full circle, where we have enough material for recycling helmets that we can then build something else, be it sunglasses or goggles or something, and we keep it all in-house, and we create another product stream out of entirely recycled products. And that's the dream.
I like the way you dream, Rob. That is a really exciting dream, and sounds like a very smart marketing strategy as well. So for our snowboarders and skiers out there, or just anybody who's listening and goes, wow, this is really interesting, how do they find the product?
www.antiordinary.co is our website. That's the easiest way. There's a place to sign up. There's a place you can buy them. We're just about all sold out for this season anyway. But yeah, we always love interacting, and people with cool ideas and people who, want to represent or take photos or something. We're always looking to collaborate and chat to cool people. So I'd love for people to reach out.
Fantastic. We will get that in the show notes on the KidGlov website too, in case anybody didn't get it, but it is .co and not .com. So we make sure we get you there as well. All right, Rob, I'm going to ask you a totally different question now. And it's actually my favorite question because people who listen to the podcast know that I am inspired by motivational quotes. You are a motivational and inspiring guy with an inspiring story. Can you give us an original, anti-ordinary quote for our listeners?
I'm not sure if it's original, but I've been saying this for a while, so I don't know if it's popped into my head or I've heard it somewhere and coined it as my own, but a big one is luck is made and serendipity is found.
Ooh.
And I think you get a lot of people, and you get to a certain point of doing this stuff and go, oh, you're so lucky. And you go, oh, yeah, but I sort of worked for all this. I wasn't lucky on my couch when I was there 6 years ago. You sort of got to go out and get it. And I think luck is very much a product of risk and effort. And you've got to be willing to go out there and risk it all and put all the effort in. And same with serendipity. You don't get serendipity, sitting on the couch. You've got to get up and find it. And the more you get up there, the more you try, the more effort you put in, the more you risk, the more you find these lucky things. And that's been sort of a common theme throughout my entire journey so far, and something I'm really grateful for.
That is so good. Luck is made, serendipity is found. Right? Luck is made, serendipity is found. I like that because I bet anybody who says you're lucky doesn't know how many late nights, early mornings, long flights, financial risks, personal risks, all the things that go into it. So I appreciate you for that. Rob, I have loved meeting you. I've loved getting to talk with you and to see your product. As we wrap up our time together today, what is the most important thing you would like our listeners to remember about the work that you're doing?
Look after your brain and look after your friends' brains. We know a lot more now about the way that these brain injuries and even the small impacts affect us later on. And for a long time, we've always thought, hey, this CTE thing or an athlete gets a little bit older and you start getting a little bit sad, a little bit more quiet, but you keep an eye on your friends. Make sure that it could be the effects of a degenerative brain disease that we get from impacting our heads in these sports. And it's inevitable. Doesn't matter if you're playing football, soccer, rugby, snowboarding, riding motorbikes, it's inevitable. But the more we talk about it, the more we can fix it, the more we can be aware of it, the safer all of us and our friends' brains are going to be.
That is profound. Look after your friends' brains. That should be a new mantra for everyone. Rob, I fully believe the world needs more people like you, more companies like Anti-Ordinary. Thank you for taking time to share with us today.
My pleasure. Thank you so much for having me.
We hope you enjoyed today's Agency for Change podcast. To hear all our interviews with those who are making a positive change in our communities, or to nominate a changemaker you'd love to hear from, visit KidGlov.com at KidGlov.com to get in touch. As always, if you like what you've heard today, be sure to rate, review, subscribe, and share. Thanks for listening, and we'll see you next time.